Whew. Got a lot of this crap up here. Well, this is interesting, isn't it? Today we are, well, I am measuring. I got a handy dandy tape measure, pad of paper, and we're gonna get some measurements because we need to figure out what kind of solar panels we can slap on here. And I'm sure I can walk on this roof. Something though, I don't really want to. Especially because it's so small, I think I'm gonna go ahead and stay off of it for the most part. Obviously, before we put any solar panels down, we wanna go ahead and, you know, clean this off pretty good. But actually, they allow RV washes here. So we have all of this space here. This is wonderful. I've got, it looks like MC4 connectors over there, as you can see. I got a roof vent for the fridge, the Houghton. And nice and low profile, look at that thing. And then let me think. I probably have something else up front, but I do have a max air fan. So I want to go ahead and note those and then start to get some measurements, because if we go with smaller panels, you know, we may be able to say 100 to 200 watts, right? We stick one here, stick one on the inner side, you know. And then these guys could be in one series. And then, so we do like multiples of two, kind of like we did with Lenny V-Bus. You know, but that can do some bigger panels over there, and then, you know, we could set maybe, see, 1 2 3 4 across, depending, you know. So we have some options here. But let me go ahead and just get some measurements. I'm not going to put anything on top of the AC, although that would be an option. And if we wanted to raise them up, and we don't, because I like how low profile it is, we can actually fit under the truck eating bridge in Kirkland. I think that the limit's like 10. This is under 11 feet, which is cool. But yeah, it's nice to have a lower clearance. I think that about does it for my measurements. And yeah, we'll have another video where we go ahead and wash our Escape, aka the Liberty. So what have I found out? Well, so there's a vent there, a vent here, a fan, an AC, and I guess technically you could say that's a vent as well. So there are a couple of obstructions, 3 vents, 2 fans, 1 AC. They're very minor, but otherwise, the largest area we have in terms of real estate here, obviously, is back here. I'm basing these measurements off of what I think we could reasonably secure to. Now, there's something that's very interesting about the Escape, if you didn't already know this, and it's not like the Scamps, it's not like the Casitas. The Olivers are very different. So where a lot of those guys will have the bump out up top, right? They come in steep, you know, they kind of notch down, right, so to speak, and then they kind of come up in the middle. They're sort of arched. Personally, I think it gives them kind of a cuter appeal. I think they're a little bit cuter because they're more round. I like the round shape. These are not like that. They're more squared off. And from first glance, you know, purely an aesthetics thing, you're like, oh, that's just a box. But it's not. It's actually quite interesting. It gives you much more headroom. It gives you more storage room. There's a lot of benefits to this, you know, beyond just aesthetic. I mean, listen to the fiberglass, I might add. You know, that's good stuff. The tap test passes. But here's something unique, and this does not occur on the other side. On the other side, there's, I think, a little bit of a divot, if I'm not mistaken. That kind of comes down and then out. And here, looking at this, you see how everything's sort of like congregating right in here. It comes down, and then it comes back up. So, you're not going to be able to see that super well. But it comes back up and then it flares up over there. And it sort of, yeah, you can sort of see it there. It sort of flares right there. To be honest, I don't know exactly why they have done this. I imagine it has something to do with the flow of water and rain. And particularly when you have condensate. I mean, I haven't talked to these guys, so again, this is all speculation. We have condensate from the drain on this guy. It's just going to flow over. Well, the water has to go somewhere, and of course they don't want it going inside, so what do they have it do? Come over. But the nice part is that it's not all dripping onto the campsite, you know, the porch side of your rig. So I imagine that's part of that. You know, they have to have the ugly gutters, right? So maybe that's that. Or it can just go onto the other side. So it's not an entirely symmetrical design, which is totally okay. So what the plan is, tentatively, obviously I need to find the best use of space. Panels, right? More panels means more wires, means a little tiny bit more weight. So I'm gonna find higher density panels. So ideally like smallest footprint, biggest wattage. That might be obvious to some folks, but if you've never done this, this is kind of how this works. Then, you know, we've done quite a few install methods before. I should preface this and say on an RV, a regular RV, I've never drilled. And surprise, it worked out very well every single time. What kind of panels will we go with? Well, we'll go with the rigid panels, and there's a couple reasons. One, heat is bad for electronics, whether it's this camera, whether it's your phone, whether it's your laptop. You might notice that sometimes if you have a notebook, it gets really hot. Well, that can actually wear things down a lot faster. It does. And with solar panels in particular, as the wafers, as the material heats up, it'll actually decrease the power output. So the hotter it gets past a certain point, the less output you get. So it's kind of a big deal. So go with the rigid panel instead of like the flexible panels for that very reason. They're heavier, but they're much longer lasting. That also gives us the opportunity to, you know, potentially go with something that's a little bit wider because it doesn't have to conform, right? It's a big deal. Now, if you've ever wondered why I don't use flexible panels anymore, it's because one of them almost caught fire. You could actually see the char marks on an Airstream that we had, but they would just die. They don't output power, and a lot of times, especially down in Tennessee, I mean, you're getting great sun all day, but the metal's heating up and whatnot on the Airstreams. Those were baking, and they would give up within 3, 4, 5 months. Like, it was pretty bad. So that being said, we have the option of doing whatever kind of feet we want. We could do a rail system, and a rail system, I'm not against it, but a rail system only has so much surface area, right? And so, we could raise up and go over the AC and all that crap. If you're doing something like that, you only have so much surface area to make contact with, and the rail they can start to twist and such. And you also have to remember this thing's going down the road, right? And so on the bus, we use the rail, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, it's a perfect solution for the bus in my opinion. But we actually bolted through in a few places. Now, I think it was only 2 bolts per rail, and we used 2.5 rails, essentially, 2 full length and then 1/2 length rails on either side. So 5 total, 5 full lengths total, I think, something to that effect. So we only had so many bolts in, but it was a big deal to bolt that down. And I'll show you all the adhesive we use, and you can use whatever you want. Sikaflex has a good option for adhering. I like to use VHB tape to adhere, and I also like to use something called the Turnabond. If you're not familiar with that already, it's really good stuff. And as a matter of fact, if you have any seal points, such as on the Max fan, which they did such a great job sealing that, right? So every so often we need to come up here, right, and make sure that's all sealed up and it looks still great, and around those points. What we could also do is put some of that seam tape around that, and it'll actually help seal that off. And there's a lot of folks that go, yeah, I don't ever worry about it. There are some folks that just put them around like the vents and such, the fans and such. Some folks that actually put them around their seams, going down the rig. That is another idea, because you can see this one big beautiful piece of fiberglass, right? Unfortunately, they don't make motorhomes like this, but that is a recommendation. You do what you want to, and you could even double it up where you run some of that seam sealer tape, like a Turnabond. Really good stuff, really sticky stuff. And some people even follow that up just to be extra sure. I don't know, that's a little overkill. It's just my opinion. They follow it up with some more a self-leveling sealant, or whatever they want to on the edges of that. And there's folks that say 10 years It's all good. No problems. So it's an option. And that's something we have to worry about. We don't have any seams on this guy, but it is an option. So, little pro tip. I really do wish they would make motorhomes in this sort of like one-piece kind of monocoque sort of construction like this, you know? How nice would that be? But as for solar panels, you know, this is going to play a role. Now, in the past, I've bought pre-made feet for solar panels. Done that. But I might actually, instead of buying the pre-made feet, which do have a lot of surface area, I might just go buy regular stainless steel feet, like we were using, the little L brackets, for example, that we were using on the bus, and go ahead and run some of those through, because here's why. If this guy's at a bit of an angle, but it's mostly flat, the VHB will help to fill in on the foot, but I can also angle it in such a way, then drill in to the you know, the panel side, you know, you just do it all carefully, take your time. That may allow me to have some more flexibility. There are a few factors here. Because this guy, the Houghton, is not super big, but it's going to cast a shadow, no doubt, obviously. Perfect overhead, you know, day sun, we're good, but in the evening, you know, one side or the other is not going to get as much sun. So the same thing with this max fan. Otherwise, we don't really have too much getting in the way. So that factor to me, you know, because one option, right, is to run this guy and that guy in series, for example, go around. And I don't think I'm going to do that in this case, actually, kind of giving it a little more thought, because if that guy's getting sun over there and they're in series, then if this is not, it's going to drag the whole thing down, versus that guy may be able to, you know, say 2 right there or something like that. Those can get some sun. In this, even if this is not producing, you know, that's still getting, you know what I mean? So that's generally kind of how I've done it in the past, where one side is in series, as long as it made sense. One side is in one series, the other side's in another, and then they just join in. And, you know, we'll have long cables up to this point, and they gave us that port, which was really cool of those guys at the Escape Factory. So don't be afraid if you're ordering a trailer, yeah, especially an Escape, they're made for you, right? Like that's their motto. It's kind of cheesy, but it's also very, very true, where that was one example of, like, I didn't want to have the solar panel installed, 2 solar panels installed, and you know, off we went. I will also say that the 200-watt solar panels that they came with were pretty good density, like in terms of, like, you know, square footage sort of thing. So yeah, huge fan of that. Also, I might go ahead and just like run the drone up here real quick, see about it's still kind of wet, you know, a little but see if I can like blow some of this off. So I'm going to do a little shopping here in just a few minutes after I get down. Do a little shopping. I'm going to start with Santan Solar because they've treated me very well in the past, and they're down in Arizona. It gives me a reason to drive down there with Emma. We love taking little road trips and such. So, you know, they always have really good prices. They've treated us well. Their customer service is really good. It's hard to beat their prices because they're used panels. Some people that might scare, it doesn't scare me one bit. And at least you know they're tested and all that. And you're also buying them at a fraction of the price. So the question is, though, you know, because a lot of these are off the solar farms, they tend to be really high voltage. We're going to have to figure out footprints. I have some measurements here. This is really ugly, but I'm really probably going to go based on the smallest measurement here. So yeah, this is gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. I actually need to get one more measurement. I totally forgot. Get that, but yeah, let me get down from here. You can see the curvature here, very different than the other side, and you really wouldn't notice it, partially because there's an awning on the other side. But they have very particular molds. You can see the coils on the Houghton, they're blue. Must be some of the corrosion resistance applied to that. That's good to see. Oh, and there's some of the specs for our AC unit there. I don't know if that's easy to read or what, but yeah, some of the specs there. One other factor to consider for this is we already have an existing charge controller. Now we'll have a lot less solar on this portion. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. We have a lot less solar on the trailer itself. And we're not doing any cool side mounting. Emma doesn't want to ruin the appeal. I get it. So it is a very pretty trailer. But there's only so much roof real estate which lends itself well to this, but we are limited by our charge controller right now, because charge controllers for Victron, and we want to stay with Victron because it's all in the same system. The charge controller is a 150, so you'll see 100 line 50. That means that we can go up to 100 volts, and there's an interesting point to that, and then it will output 50 amps, up to 50 amps. Now, there's something kind of interesting, because I mentioned that when solar panels get hot, they are less efficient, but the inverse is also true when they get cold, right? Like if you had one in Alaskan sun and it was perfectly, optimal, it will actually outperform an Arizona panel in the, considering, sun and direction and all that. A cold panel will outperform a hot panel. It's very interesting. And you can go, like we could, output 50 amps. We could have an 80 amp total input. You can go over the amps. I think they recommend don't go over by more than like 3 times, but you cannot go over the voltage. So that's interesting. So that means that when we add a bunch of them in series, which means you connect the panels together, right? Instead of just like, positive and negative off one, positive and negative off, and then you combine them, you connect panel 1 and 2 and 3, maybe connect those together, and then one positive and then one negative. Hopefully that's making sense. That's going to add up volts, so we have to make sure that our voltage does not exceed 100. And with smaller panels, that's not usually an issue. You could probably add like 4 if they're like a 20.5 volt panel. It's what we've had in the past with Renogy or HQST. But with a lot of the solar farm panels that are larger, those could be like 80 volt panels, which is kind of interesting. So this is actually one of the reasons we had to upgrade our charge controller from a 150 100, which we still have, thankfully. Somebody said there was a problem with it when we went to go sell it, so they returned it. Okay, it does work. So so we're going to take that 150 100, we're going to keep that in our back pocket and use that for a separate install. Yes, that's right, you heard me. And I'm going to try to use the 150 component that we have in here without upgrading that. These are like it's like $500 and something if we have to upgrade. So I'm hoping not to have to. We'll stay within those limitations. Don't ever exceed voltage, but you can exceed amperage. Oh, look at that. It's gonna be hard to see, but you can see the ducks all playing out here. How lovely is this? Oh, look a little more brown today. It's a little more like reddish brown to me. I'll have to get the drone up and show you guys what a beautiful day it is. Now this is actually quite important here. So I'm looking at the spec page for the 150 100, and it's looking like that will actually, if we're giving it 12 volt power, that will only give us up to 700 watts total. That's actually quite important. So we could have more than 700 watts, but it's not going to provide more than 700 watts worth of power because we're on 12 volts. If we go 24, we could go up to 1400 watts. We have the ability to go to 36 volts if we wanted to. Victron doesn't support 36, generally speaking. The charge controllers will, but the multi-plus will not. The 12 volt multi-plus is what we have right here. Right now we're looking at, with the gear that we have, 700 watts coming in at any given time. That's not a whole lot. But if we were to go to upgrade, we would then just skip straight to 48 volts. Now we're talking about potentially, we have 6 batteries, so dropping 2 off, so we're dropping capacity, or we could double our battery bank. There are more all-in-one systems, so that's an expense. That's a pretty big expense. I would love to do it. We're also talking, basically we'd swap out the multi-plus, and then we would need to add a step-down converter, which those are cheap. But a multi-plus, we're talking about some pretty big expenses. Wouldn't be impossible, but it would be kind of a pain. So what are the options that we have? Well, if we want to truly maximize everything, obviously it's a very big investment. If we want to use what we have, which is most ideal, and then just buy panels and a couple of cables and such, we can go up to, like I said, about 700 watts, and we can add more panels. More panels just means more opportunity for power, but it will only give us up to a maximum of 700. So we might go with that. And for the second array, we'll use the 150 100. which will add power. And again, the more you can soak up, the better, I'll say. So debating, you know, it sucks to like kind of, oh man, we could get so much power, but you're looking at a total of 1450 being provided by the 150-100 that we have, and 700 watts. So you're at 2150, you know, potentially 2150 watts is not enough to run. Yeah, if we're in perfect sun, it would not be close to enough to run the air conditioner and everything else. Got some thinking to do here. As a matter of fact, we're out here hanging out, letting these guys have some nice fresh air. I'm just gonna see real quick, just out of curiosity, while we have the power. Basically, what does the air conditioner use? So we've got mode here, so I can go mode. There's a cool button. Okay, so we want to get it down to, let's just see. Oh, okay, we'll go down to 60. Go down to 60, never mind. All right, we just kicked on. So this is how much is being pulled from shore power right here. 450 from shore power. We have 394. That's running the fan, and I doubt it's running this. Let me shut this off though. Yeah, that made a difference. So now we're at 89 watts just for the fan here. Let me see if I can get this guy to kick on. And I'm just curious. This is not the best test, obviously, because the ambient in here is pretty low. It's probably 63 or so in here, but yeah, it doesn't really, there's no way to display. Oh, you guys can't see that, can you? Oh, there it is. I wish there was a way for this to display what the ambient actually is, but okay, that's on. Oh, well, you know, actually 772. Okay, so with the truck at this rate, okay, it's getting colder. At this rate, we might actually, I mean, plus we got shore, what's coming in from shore, so there's some conversion losses. And then, yep. Okay, so, ooh, that is getting real cold. That is really nice and cold. And a lot of people wonder, like, what about being able to talk? I'm talking here at like a pretty low voice, and you can still hear me pretty well. So, you know, and the farther we get away from it, the quieter it gets. Yeah, it's not too bad. Oh, that's just running the fan now. So it peaked at about 774, I think is what, 780, somewhere in there. And I can switch modes back. Actually, we have a dehumidify function. Huh. I don't know how to dehumidify function. That'd be nice. I'm gonna look up what the max that this is expected to pull here. I showed it on the camera a little bit ago. Let me turn the fridge back on, that'd be nice. But these are the things that I'm kind of going through. I'm like, you know, because if it's 700 watts, the trailer can't support itself, but the trailer and the truck definitely could. Update time. This is kind of going to be interesting. Let me say that. Here's why. So basically, the most efficient panel I have found, it's a 42 by 21. But the way that it works is so I would like to go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But we have that little edge over there. So these panels, and I'm looking at Santan, and I'm not saying anything small. They're really good for big panels, and I still think we're gonna go to them for our second set. Amazon has a 4 times 100 watt panel set for essentially it's $200, which would be, or just under, it would be about 50 cents a watt, which is pretty good. Especially for brand new panels. I don't care if they're new or used as long as they work. Basically, I know for a fact we could go 1, 2, 3, 4. However, that panel or that AC may shade that panel. So, you know, that's a factor. I'm gonna go up front as well. But it's really like, I'd like to have a good plan. Looking over here, I can definitely go over here, but there's almost always trees on this side. So I don't necessarily want to put something there if we don't have to. Here, that's just not gonna happen. We are going to, because of the voltage and amperages, I think we're gonna be pretty well going with like 4 sets of 2, if that makes sense. So that'll be like 1, 2 connected to each other and then out. And so we'll need a 4-to-1 splitter to get them into our MC4s. And man, they made that easy, didn't they? Look at that sucker. So, but yeah, maybe it's gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. But let me check the front. Because they're small. You know, for example, there's a 295 watt panel, 78.1 inches by basically 40. It's not gonna work. So, you know, I don't like having more panels, but you know, we'll got to do what we do. Let me get the other side real quick again. Sometimes, you know, I have it all written down, but like sometimes you just got to see it. Like, oh, can I shift things? Now here's another factor. So the front, of course, we cannot go because of this obstruction unless I brought the panels up, and I'm not doing that again. I'd like to keep everything below the max line here, which is actually, it is going to be the AC. So what can we do here? Well, we have about 34 inches-ish here of mountable space. That's not going to work because we would do sort of 42 by 21 roundabout, which is cool. If you put them side by side, it's just a square. But we do have more than 80, just over 84 inches between this cap and that cap. So we could go 1, 2, right? Just long, what do you call it? Hot dog style. And it's wide open over there, so there's that. But this is an interesting way that my brain works, where I go, you know, that feels like a waste of space, doesn't it? You know, I mean, I guess we could go 1, 2, 3, 4 and not go along there, but then it's like, but then we have all that space. I like to have a lot of solar. It's just the way I work, you know. And by the way, side note, the benefit of solar is that you have to do less heating and cooling. Why? Because the sun's not beating down, it's beating on the solar panels and then dispersing from there. And especially in a fiberglass unit, like, you don't, there's not as much heat transfer, but every little bit counts, right? So now we're going to have too much. And what does that mean? Well, we have see, these are going to be 100 watt panels. It's possible that we could hook up, you know, because it came with 2 200 watt panels. Those are pretty large though. So is there a way to hook those up? Combining batteries, if they're all 100 amp hours, they're running at 12 volt, 12.8 volts, whatever, easy. BMS doesn't matter. The BMS protects the individual battery. You know, that's obviously, as you guys might not know, but in the background I've been running everything just off the batteries and then plugging in afterwards just to see how long I can run, you know. You get a couple hours if you're using the heat pump and all. Anyways, but with solar panels, when you combine solar panels, you only get the rating of the weakest. So, you know, like if there's a lower voltage, you get the lower voltage. If there's a lower amperage, you get the lower amperage, at least as I understand it. I've only played around with voltages, and you drop down to the lower voltage, which reduces your overall output. But it seems to me that with those panels, we might be able to throw them into the mix. You do something like a 5-to-1 splitter. I don't know, you know, because we're going to be over paneled here, but which is great in the winter, right? If you think about it, if we can only get 700 watts, but we have 8, for example, if we don't use the ones that it came with, if we can only get 700 watts, then you know, maybe we have a higher chance of getting closer to that. But if we have what is it, plus 400, so 800 plus 400 is 1200 watts. If we have 1200 watts, we're a lot more likely to get to that 700 watt max. So yeah, and we could swap the charge controller that's in there, but I mean, right now I'm not in a big hurry. So yeah, I'm gonna think on this, but I am going to order these panels, especially at the deal. I mean, 50 cents a watt is pretty decent for a brand new panel. You can buy them used though, especially if you get a real good deal on like Facebook Marketplace and such. You can buy them used for 10 cents a watt. So I am very excited about this. It's gonna be a real easy install, guys. And we still need to look for mounting feet. So I might go just buy regular mounting feet. You know, they're a little more expensive, but there's more surface area. We'll see. I might go to Lowe's too, and Home Depot, and see what they've got going on. Boom, ordered, and that was a total of $262 for 800 watts of panels, 8 100 watters. And the reason is we got out a gift card. It was a Visa gift card,
an e-gift card for showing our rig. And the couple that actually saw it was actually kind enough to, they were like, hey, we have this for you. It was, so they also added to that, which is really very quite kind. Now, if you're curious, because I didn't know how to go about it, because Amazon doesn't really split payment methods, but you can use gift cards. And I was getting frustrated. I'm like, how are we going to use this thing? Because most places don't split, you know. And it was a digital card. But it turns out if you buy a $100 gift card, for example, from a virtual card on Amazon, you can then, there's no fees or anything like that. So $100 means $100, and then you apply that to, you know what I mean? And then you can use a debit card that you already have, plus your second virtual card technically, but it would be the e-gift card on Amazon. So anyways, that worked out swimmingly. So those will be, let's see, somewhere between March 6th and 11th, and my mom's gonna take delivery of those. She's like, it's not gonna be like last time, right? Or they brought a big ass truck. They brought a big old truck, and they had to use a forklift, and then they couldn't bring the solar panels to my mom's like back porch, which is the whole thing. So we went down and picked them up in Tacoma or Fife. So anyways, this'll do it for this, and then I'll do like feet or something like that. I might actually order the feet. We probably have enough cable. We have a lot of cable. So I need to get actually I wrote this down. I need to get a 4-to-1 MC4 combiner. I need to get some 10 gauge cable if we don't have enough, but I can do most of the work, and you know, whatever. I will need to get some connectors actually. Let me write that down. I'll need to get some MC4 connectors, a turn-on VHB. I know we have VHB, but do we have enough, right? This stuff should take a lot less time. And then some panel feet, and that should be it. So there's a couple things we need. We should have everything. Anyways, that was great. So, and then we'll get this guy up and running. This should actually lower our power bill, though. Here, I don't know what it is yet. The lady came by earlier, and I was like, what the hell are you doing on the side of the rig? She was reading the meter. So she, we'll see what that is gonna cost us. I've not paid a power bill in 10 or 11 years. Like it's been a very long time. For one reason or another, I've just not had to pay a power bill for a long time. And then of course, when you don't go to an RV park, you know, there's that. So, oh, what a beautiful day. You know what, let me get Dora the drone up. Let's go take a flight. See things from above. And, oh yeah, I was driving this out. Spilled the dog water. What a lovely day. But I'll leave you here. Little drone footage at the end, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.